Hi everyone, and welcome to our final episode. Imagine our final episode of MakeCode Arcade as part of our DreamSpace HomeSpace series. My name is Amanda, and joining me today is Corey.
Hi everyone.
And as always, we have our team in the background answer any questions. And Corey, I cannot believe it's the last episode.
I know. Where has the time went?
Yeah, and I know on behalf of myself and the entire team there that you can see all our names on the screen. And thanks for joining us. For this is our 11th episode, so it's a lot of episodes to have joined us for. Hopefully you've had lots of fun, and when we finish out today, hopefully you're only getting started really with MakeCode Arcade, and you can continue on your journey. That's the plan, isn't it, Corey?
Yeah, definitely.
So before we get going today, as always, we just want to make sure that you have the code file from last week. So if you can go to the usual aka.ms HomeSpace files, if you haven't saved the code file, go ahead up there, head into the arcade collection and access the code file there for us, please. So if you need to pause and go and do that, that's great. Go and do that now so that you can be exactly where I start off now in literally a couple of seconds. So pause ahead there and I'm going to go out of this and get going. Okay, so I've gone straight into my editor now, so you can actually I'm in the file that I've opened up. So if you download the file, you know yourselves at this point, just import it, open it up, and you're going to be exactly where I am here on my screen. So Corey, just to recap, I suppose, over what we did last week. So if I refresh actually my game over here. So remember, we're kind of we're looking at similar to Crossy Roads here, very similar, aren't we? So we had our sprite, which is Tweety, our player. We have our roads. Remember, so far what our code is doing is, first of all, allowing Tweety to move, and we made our tile map and so on. We have cars moving right and left on our tile map, like you can see there. If they hit us, it's game over, isn't it, Corey?
Yep, it is.
So we have to first of all make sure we get across there safely. Then we're in another safe space here. And what we did last week then was we added other things to our tile map. So we added crocodiles, which were kind of an enemy, and we added logs. Now, what we want to do is help Tweety today. We want to help Tweety safely navigate across that water to the other side again. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the logs nearly as our friend here, aren't we, Corey?
Yeah, we're going to use them to help us get across so we don't hit off any of the crocodiles.
Exactly, and you can see my count, it's saying game over because my countdown timer, we added that last week too, so we had a countdown timer in. So we're going to use the logs, as Corey said. So we're going to think about it this way: the water and the crocodiles are not our friends. Yeah, so we need to use the logs as best as we can, okay? Now there's quite a little bit of code to this. There's actually a couple of new blocks. I know it's the last episode, but we've seen a lot of repetitive code used, but today there's a couple of new ones. So again, feel free to pause at any point if you need to. And we are going to do this in blocks today, but again, last 2 weeks, really impressed to see people getting stuck in with JavaScript. So if you want to toggle and kind of have a look and try and learn how this is done in JavaScript as well, please do. That would be amazing. So feel free to do that. But we're going to, for time and just to get things done within the time we've left in our final episode, we're going to head into blocks, okay? So we want every time, I'm going to quickly refresh again. We want that when Tweety, oh God, this is a busy road. Okay, there we go. So we want those logs basically to help us get across. Now we want every time the game updates, those logs to have certain settings. Let's call it that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here and we're going to bring in our on-game update block. So every single time the game updates, okay, we want the logs and the settings for the water to be a certain way, all right? So if we think about it, all of those logs together are a collection, okay? And Corey, we talked about collections before, didn't we, of the same type of item? What do we call that?
Yeah, we did, and we called them arrays.
Yeah, so you might remember at home as well, we call them arrays. So if we go into advanced, down here we have the arrays area. What we want to do basically is make sure that all of these logs have the same settings. So we're going to create an array, we're going to collect them all together and then apply those things to that collection, okay? So we're going to go into arrays, and in arrays, you can see we have this one here. It says set sprite list to array of sprites of kind. So we are going to grab that one and we're going to bring that in. Excuse me, sorry. And we can see here, set sprite list to array sprites of kind. Now, before I go any further, Corey, we actually created a new kind for our logs last week because they weren't players and they weren't enemies and they weren't food. So we were very creative, weren't we?
Yeah, and we called them logs.
Yeah. So
or even log.
Yeah, we have a kind here called log. So that's what that is, believe it or not. And for this one here, for sprite list, you could leave it, but I'm going to just rename it as log list. So log underscore list. Okay. Okay, perfect. So first of all, that's what we're doing. We're basically setting this log list to be a collection or an array of all of those logs that we created last week as part of our game. Okay. Now, part of this is going to be that Tweety actually lands on the log and moves with the log. Okay. So we want to actually create a variable called onLog. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell the game when that variable is active and not active. So it's going to be on and off. And we talked about Boolean logic before, didn't we, Corey?
Yep, we did.
And we talked about binary actually code last week, and all of these things basically tie together. Corey talked about ones and zeros last week, like ones is like on and zeros are like off, okay? So with this, we're basically going to be saying that this onLog variable, we're going to set that to be false or true, which is kind of like on or off, okay? So before we do any of that, let's go and create our variables. We're going to make our variable, okay? And we are going to call it onLog, okay? And I'm going to go and grab this block here, and I'm going to set onLog to be something. So I'm going to grab this one and drop that in. And to begin with, we're going to just make sure we're going to put that as false, and then we will activate it when we want it to be true. Is that fair enough, Corey?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm going to go into logic, which is where we'll find our booleans and all of our all of those related topics, which you can see there's boolean and there's true. And we're going to grab that. And now I know they're not the same shape, and we talked about this before, but in this instance here, we're actually okay, because this from a coding point of view makes complete sense for us to do this. Okay, so we are going to set onLog to, or sorry, and we're going to make it false, aren't we, Corey? I think at the start.
Yeah, because we want to turn it off at the start.
Perfect. Okay, so if you need to pause at any point, guys, if you want to pause now and just make sure you're up to speed there, go for it. Okay, and I'm going to plow on. So there's the first two things. Now, the last thing I want to do before we set some conditions around this is Tweety's velocity. We talked about this before, her speed in a given direction. When she goes on the logs, we don't want her to have any velocity. We want her velocity and the log velocity to be the same. Remember, the log's velocity could be going in different directions. It could be going from the right-hand side of the screen across to the left, or the left-hand screen across to the right. So we want basically Tweety's to match that. So we're going to nearly say to Tweety, set your velocity to 0. And then what we'll do as part of our condition is we'll make sure that Tweety's velocity is matched to our log. Okay, so let's go into our sprites. We're going to go up to our top menu here, into our sprites. And we are going to go down. We've done this a couple of times now where we've set velocities. So we're going to grab set my sprite x2, bring that one in. And we're talking about Tweety in this instance. And we're talking about the velocity Tweety has on x, vx, okay? And we are going to leave that as 0. Okay, so we're happy with that one. So there's our first kind of 3 instructions. Hopefully at home we're understanding why we're doing these things. If not, maybe it'll become clear as we go on now. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to give instructions for that collection we've just did. So remember, that collection is an array, and we want to set instructions for every single one of them. And instead of having to do them individually, we can use a loop and identify that for all the elements in that array we want to do stuff, okay? So if we go into loops here, Corey, you've done this, like, I can't even remember how many times. Like
Too many times.
Yeah, so many times. So into loops, remember there was a block here. Corey used this loads of times across different games. So for element value of the list. So let's grab that one and bring that in underneath. Now, value is fine, and the list in this instance, remember, is our log list. So this is the list that contains the collection of logs, the array of logs. So we're going to go into list, and we're going to change that to log list. And what we want to say is basically for every single one of those logs, for every single element, we want these instructions to be checked or iterated through, okay? So we're going to give a condition here. All right. So remember, our conditional statements are in logic. So we're going to hop into logic. And we're going to grab our if, then block and just drop that in there. Okay. Now, the reason we're using this is we need to tell the game what should happen, okay, when we're talking about all these logs, what should happen when Tweety overlaps with one of those logs, or any of those logs, basically, okay? So we want to talk about overlaps here. So we're going to go into sprites, and we're going to go down until we get to our overlaps menu. And there's a block here that says my sprite overlaps with other sprite, and that's the one we want for our if statement. So I'm going to bring that one out. I'm going to pop that one in there instead of true. And we're just going to make sure our names match. We've errors here because they don't. So we want to say if Tweety overlaps with. Now, Corey, we have to be careful here, don't we?
Yeah.
So Tweety is going to be overlapping with, we're not going to say log, we're talking about every single one of those logs in that array. And remember, the value is each element of the array. So if Tweety overlaps with value, which is going to be any of those logs. Is that fair enough, Corey?
Yes.
So that's kind of important. Just make sure, if you need to pause and just make sure that we're good there. That's important to say. So we're going to now tell the game if Tweety overlaps with the value or any of those logs, this is what we want you to do. Okay. First of all, up here, we have said on log is false. So currently this is not active. We are now going to make this true. So we're going to duplicate this for speed. I'm going to right click and duplicate, or if you're using a tablet, you can touch and hold and click duplicate. And I'm now going to activate this as true. So we're going to change our Boolean instruction here from false to true. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And then we're also going to get Tweety's velocity to match, okay? With the log's velocity, okay? So we are going to go into set. Again, we've done this one already even today. This one here. We just have a few steps involved. And we are going to say set Tweety's, and it's velocity, remember, on X, so Vx 2. Now, instead of a number here, remember, we want Tweety's velocity to match to whatever log Tweety's on. Okay, that velocity, because remember, it could be right or left. It could be different. Okay, it can vary. So we want something that's going to fit in there that's representative of that. So let's hop into sprites again. And I actually think, Corey, this one is probably going to do the job for us here.
Yeah, because we know we can change it because it has the arrows.
Yeah, so I'm going to put that in instead of 0. And again, what are we talking about here? We're talking about our values velocity. So it's whatever log Tweety happens to be on, and value is representative of every log in that array. Okay, so Vx. Okay, so now that means Tweety is matched up. So if Tweety overlaps with a log, let's say a log for value, we're going to set that variable to be true, and we are going to now set Tweety's velocity to be the same as whatever log that he or she is on. I don't know if Tweety is male or female. Okay, so nearly there. Corey, might just actually, if people want to pause and just get their code right, and I actually might just test this out. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
I'm excited.
So get across the road first, and let's just see if I can hop on. Woohoo!
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay. Oh, hold on a sec. Okay, now I remember we talked about at the start, the water is not our friend either. I shouldn't be able to just sit on the water. The only way I should be able to get across is to be literally on logs. Otherwise, it should be game over for me. So Corey, we probably just want to add one more thing here, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we're going to add another condition, guys. All right, so we're going to go into logic and grab if true then. And this is outside of our array, our for loop. So we're going to bring this underneath here. And we're going to introduce another, we're getting loads of Booleans in. We're going to introduce another, or not introduce, because we think we might have actually touched on this before, but another concept, another Boolean concept, which is sometimes we use the word and sometimes we use the word or. And this hopefully will make sense. We'll bring out the block first, and hopefully it'll make sense as we go. So I'm going to hop into logic, and down the bottom, there's something here. There's an empty slot and the word and an empty slot. So I'm going to grab that one and bring that in. Now, this is really useful. So hopefully this will make sense as you see why we're using it. We want to basically say, if Tweety is on a blue tile, which is obviously representative of the water, but not just if Tweety's on the blue tile, because basically the logs are on a blue tile too. So if Tweety was on the log, technically Tweety's on a blue tile. So we need to use and to say, if Tweety is on a blue tile and not on a log. Doesn't that make sense, Corey? Because otherwise it's actually going to contradict what we're trying to say.
Exactly.
So we want to actually, for this instance here with our Boolean, we want our comparison to be across two things. They're going to check off, one, is Tweety on the blue tile? And two, is Tweety not in a log? And if that's the case, then we're going to say game over, because that means that Tweety's in the water. Okay, which we don't want. Okay, so let's go do that. Now, the blue tile one, we're talking about our tile map. So we're going to go into scene. And if we go down, we should see a block down here. Oh, have I gone by, Corey? Tile. Oh, this one. This one, isn't it? Yeah. I'm going to grab that one here. And now, as you can see, a lot of things flashing up here. Just be careful. Just going to make sure that goes into the first one there. Okay. And we are going to say if the tile to the center, so not kind of to the left or right, because it can be a bit glitchy then. So we want to say if the tile to the center of Tweety is blue. Okay, so that's the first thing. So that's us trying to understand where Tweety is in terms of location. So if she's on the water. But the other thing then is to make sure that she's not on a log. So she could be on the water, but on a log. Okay, so let's go and do that. If we go into logic, we go down to see here, this is really handy. There is a block that says not. So we're going to grab this and drop that in there. And we are going to say, going to grab our on log. Now, what was that, Corey, again?
It was a variable.
Perfect. So I'm going to go into variables. I'm going to go on log. And again, I know the shape doesn't, not cooperating.
Sometimes I have to, take it out like an.
Yeah, try that one now. Do it out here.
Do it outside, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have to do. Okay, there we go.
Woo.
Okay, let's minimize that for a sec. Actually, I'll just close this over. Okay, loads of code now. Okay, so if the tile to the center Tweety is blue and we're not on a log, remember up here, that's why, again, we're reusing what we've done earlier. So the Boolean, it's really handy for us to help give really clear instructions here. Okay, and basically what we want to do, Corey, is if this is the case, it's game over. That we're not messing around here, aren't we? Not. It's not going to lose points. It's literally like game over. See you later. So we are going to drop in game over. We're going to leave that on lose. So let's just go and test. If you need to pause again to get that code done, go for it. I'm going to go and test the game. So real quick, we are going to.
You're never going to get across that road.
Busy junction today. Okay, here we go. Hop on now, and I hit A there to hop, and it was the water. Game over. So we know it's definitely working. Okay, so I'm happy with that so far, Corey. If you want to maybe bring everyone through, we want to add a few more things people have asked about in the last, I suppose, few weeks, including projectiles.
Yes,
assignment.
Our favourite. Yeah, definitely. Let's do it. So I have the game here done up as far as Amanda got. So one thing I have noticed though, because I was practicing it just there, and it's actually very hard to get past this without a backwards button, because if you think about it, like I'm here and I have nowhere else to go now. I can't jump up because there's no log, and because I didn't do a back button when we first started, I can't move backwards either. So I think maybe the first thing we should do is include that, because I thought I'd be able to do it without it, but I clearly can't. So maybe you can at home, but this will definitely help me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scroll down so I have a bit more room, and let's go into controller, and we're going to take out on a button pressed because we know we can change that, and we're going to change A to down, because we want to go backwards. So we want to go down. And then when we're moving down, we want to change Tweety. Okay, so what we'll do there is we will go into sprites, and take out change my sprite X by 0. Now, we're so used to doing this. Okay, we've done this a few times, but we know change this to Tweety. And it's not X we're looking for, isn't it, not, Amanda? It is Y. Yeah, exactly. Now, and we know that up is minus and down is positive, so it's the opposite way from your maths class. And I'm pretty sure I went with 16 throughout this, so I'm going to stick with that. Now, what you could have done there was you could have toggled into JavaScript and tried to do the down button by yourself in JavaScript. Okay, so if you have done that, brilliant. And let me have a go at this game now that I have a downwards button. Okay, here we go. I'm feeling confident. Woo! Oh, I clicked too far left and I went into the water. I'll be very surprised if I get this done by the end of this webinar. Actually get to the end of this game. Okay, now one thing someone did say a couple of weeks ago was about projectiles, and that's such a good idea because if you think about it, then I could get the crocodiles with the projectiles and then I could save myself that little bit more of danger. So what we're going to do here is we are going to do that. We're going to set a projectile. So we have a button, don't we? So when we're moving, we use the A button. So that's gone. So let's say we can create a projectile on the B button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into controller and I'm going to say on B button pressed. And I'm just going to minimize this for a second. On B button pressed, and let's create our projectile. So we said at the start that we wanted it to be like kind of like breadcrumbs or something, didn't we? Like bread of some sort. So let's go into sprites, and in sprites there's actually a whole section dedicated to projectiles. Now we're going to go with the second block here because the first one is projectiles coming from the side of your screen, whereas this one is actually a projectile that comes from the sprite. Okay, so this one's really cool. So I'm going to take this and I need more room and I'm going to rename it. What should I rename it to? Well, I think the whole purpose of this projectile is going to be that when we throw breadcrumbs at the crocodile, it's going to be like a magic breadcrumb and like allows them to go into like a big, huge pond because they're like stuck in the Crossy Roads Lake at the moment. So they're probably not too happy with us.
Yeah, so, and they're important to habitats. I know crocodiles, people probably are scared of them, but let's save the crocodiles.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll save them with our magic breadcrumb. Now, I am going to try my best at drawing a little bit of a breadcrumb here, but I haven't even practiced this, so please, no judgment. I'm thinking that's looking pretty good.
Yeah, go for it.
And I might just put in some little whole grain. And I'm happy. That actually looks like a cookie.
It does, actually.
So that's just done. And I wanted to come from Tweety. Now, interesting, right? So the VXVY is important to this projectile. So that's going to be the direction that it goes in. So I'm actually just going to press B here. Okay, and it's in the tree is in the way there. So if I press B, okay. Now, that's not much use to me because the crocodiles are above me. Okay, so I'm going to need to alter that VXVY. So I am going to say, I don't want anything on X. I'm going to see what that looks like. Okay, I just wanted to go straight. And we've seen there that 100 was down, so minus 100 must be up. So let me see. Okay, now I actually want a little bit of a flare to mine. I'm gonna make it go like to the side a little bit. So I'm just going to say 20 on VX, okay? Because then it's moving a little bit on the X-axis. And let me see if I'm happy enough with this now. Yeah. Woohoo! I love it. Okay, now one problem is that nothing actually happens to the crocodiles when it hits them. They're not going back to their habitat, okay? So what we want to do is we want to create that overlap. And it's an overlap of two sprites. So we're going to go into our sprite category. And we are going to find our overlaps. Let's see, here we are. And again, I'm just going to minimize this. So on a sprite of kind projectile, overlaps with an enemy, we can go into sprites and we can say we can get rid of that with a certain effect. So we take out destroy. And it's not my sprite, if you remember. We've done this a couple of times. It's going to be the other sprite, because that means it's going to be the latest one that we've hit. And let's say with smiles, because they're so happy to be out of that small pond. Okay, let me see if this works. Okay, I just need to find one. Now, one thing I have noticed, I'm obviously missing a line of code there because my crocodiles aren't disappearing when they overlap with the log. So
yeah,
we did write that line of code, but I obviously messed something up somewhere, so we can have a look at that at the end. See the way they're not overlapping. Do you know what? I probably actually deleted the overlap by accident. So we can have a look at that.
There's a lot of code. So
yeah, there's a lot. So I'm pretty happy with that, but let me just have a look at our tile map, because if you think about it, right, if I try play this game now, which I will try, whoop, oh, and it was never on my controller. Okay, there we go. Okay, no, I pressed A and I was too far. Okay, right, let me see. I need to get a good opportunity here for a log. Like, there's none coming like at the bottom row where I need it to be, and that's just a quick fix there. That's
yeah, I'd say maybe we can just change our percentage chances, because I actually think we only gave ourselves it was like every 50%.
Yeah, look, every 50%. We don't stand a chance, literally.
God, we were very harsh, yeah.
We had so much confidence about being able to complete this game. Okay, this is literally me playing Crossroads all the time. Okay, not too bad. No. The car got me. Okay.
Going backwards doesn't help. Once you're on, you have to commit.
Yeah, you just have to commit, don't you? I got too excited. Okay, what we need to do now, though, is the whole point of this game is that you have to win it, okay, and get a good score. But in our tile map, we actually never created anything at the end. So what you can do now is you can actually create a new tile, or you can go into the gallery and you can pick something there for Tweety to overlap with. So in miscellaneous, there's a little crowd of friends that I love. So I'm going to pop that here. And now if Tweety overlaps with their friends, they win the game. Okay. So I need to, what?
That's nice.
Yeah, it's cute. Nice way to end the game, I think. Look, all this code, I have absolutely no room. Okay. Now we are looking at not a sprite overlap here, we're looking at a tile overlap. So because though the crowd of people was a tile, so we need to go into scene. And we're going to say on sprite of kind player overlaps with a tile. And the player is what I want. And I'm going to go with this. I think that was the one I used. I'm pretty sure. And if that happens, we win the game.
Woohoo!
With confetti. Always.
Absolutely.
Never in doubt. Any other way. Okay. Do I have faith in myself? Yes, I do. Here we go. Okay, let's try it again. I would love to know what score everyone's getting at home doing this, because it is so hard. Okay, there's no logs coming my way, even with
your percentages there, Corey.
Yeah, but I only changed them on one of them.
Oh, that's could be it. Yeah, quickly maybe.
More, and then I give up.
Oh.
No. Okay. That's sad.
That's another road and another river to pass, isn't there?
I know. We haven't even got, there's two rivers. Like if you look at the tile map. So we could literally be here all day into next week. So what I'll do is I'll leave it there, because I'm pretty sure that you'll be well able to complete it yourselves at home.
And you did complete it, in fairness. You had a video proving that you got to the end at one point in life.
Yeah, and it did take me like 26 minutes though. And I made it really easy for myself as well. It wasn't even as hard as this, so we literally would be here all day. But I'm sure you are doing much better at home on it. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to give you your final challenge. Woohoo! Okay.
Can't believe.
I know, and I'm so excited to see what you can come up with. So the whole point of the final challenge is to put everything that you've learned all together into one game and see what you can come up with. Okay, now we do have a game design booklet on our HomeSpace files that you can download and complete before you actually go in and start doing your code. And so designing your sprites and designing your background and coming up with your game idea. And then if you want, you could get a parent to tag us on Twitter using this hashtag. So MS DreamSpace, so we can see your final project. One thing I will just say though, really quickly, if I pop back into my browser, it's important to share the saved file. So see if I press save here and the image comes up here, that's the file, okay? Because sometimes people share the link and the link is just blank, okay? So that is your final project. We're super excited to see what you can come up with, and well done everyone for the past 3 months of retro game design. That's absolutely amazing. You've done so much, and you've even done a bit of JavaScript in it as well. So well done everyone. Remember, you can watch all the videos back and gather any resources that you want on HomeSpace files, and see you next time. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.